Isn't it interesting that we call this day, this Friday of Holy Week, Good Friday, when so much bad happened? Think about it through the lens of just one of the people involved in this week. Think of what it was like for Peter. His name means rock, but oh, how he stumbles, how he fails miserably this week. Now, he didn't plan to. In fact, in John 13, after Jesus washes the feet of his disciples as an example and a glimpse forward of the ultimate sacrifice Jesus will make, Peter is ready to follow Jesus wherever he goes. But Jesus says to him, "You can't follow me now." "Why not?" Peter says. "I'm ready to lay down my life for you." Well, you probably know how this plays out. Not only will Peter not die with Jesus, he will deny Jesus 3 times. This man, this rock of a man, crumbles under the pressure in 3 different moments. Now, the writers of the Bible could have just as easily left this story out or airbrushed it, but I'm grateful they didn't do that. The Bible is painfully honest about the truth that Peter, one of Jesus' closest friends and followers, in a moment of truth, turns his back on Jesus. I'm grateful for this story because I believe that in some form or fashion, it's the story of all of us. We've all failed. We all, in our own way, have denied Jesus, denied his love and his truth. And we all still struggle, I believe, to choose the life he offers, the life of washing feet, of sacrifice, of surrender, of trusting in the way of God. All of us have fallen short of the glory of God. But that's precisely the reason for Easter, where Peter is just the most obvious and blatant example of turning away from Jesus and life, something we've all done. But Jesus went where Peter didn't go, where he couldn't go, where none of us could go. Jesus went to the cross to take our denial, our sin and shame and brokenness. Jesus sees our failure and he takes it to the cross, bearing its shame in his body. That's why this Friday of Holy Week is called Good Friday. Not because of the good we have done, or that this day has anything that looks good about it on the surface. We call today Good Friday because it's the day that God's faithfulness overcomes our failure. It's the pivotal day when the salvation of God defeats our deepest sin. That's what makes it Good Friday. Back in John 13, after Peter says to Jesus, "I'll die with you," and Jesus responds by telling Peter he'll deny Jesus 3 times, you know what the very next verse says? It's easy to miss because it's actually a different chapter and verse in our Bibles. In John 14:1, it tells us something we need to hear, but because it comes after John 13, it's easy to overlook. But I'd remind you that the earliest gospel writers the writers of the Gospels, they didn't use chapters and verses. So John 14:1 should be read right after John 13:38, where Jesus says Peter will deny him. Jesus' very next words are these: "Don't let your hearts be troubled. Put your faith in God and put your faith in me." We hear Jesus say to Peter, "You will fail, but your failure will not be the last word about you." And Jesus says to him, "Trust in me." And I think Jesus would say the same thing to you and me this Easter. Your failure, my failure, are not the last word in our lives. When we look to Jesus, when we trust him and the work he has done on the cross, when this is the foundation of our belief, then our hearts find rest in him. And we truly can celebrate this as Good Friday. For on this day, Jesus overcomes our deepest failures, our greatest shame, and our sin. Thanks be to God who gives us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ on this Good Friday.